And now we have, this is a dead easy gig for me. Dr. Rory Smith, I think everybody knows, visiting professor at the University of Northampton, long time holder of senior roles in all around the elevator industry, but most recently, I guess, with ThyssenKrupp. So,
yeah, and I'm getting more senior every year.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
And I actually, and I apologize to Stefan for not reading out your paper. So Rory's paper is the effect of artificial intelligence on service operations and service personnel.
So I'm going to focus on just two subjects that are in my paper because of the lack of time. And I want to talk about, we're talking about AI and its impact in the future. Because right now, the reality hasn't quite caught up with the marketing literature, but sometime in the future it will. And so this is in the future. So today, when you do service tasks, you tip, and I've done service, whatever your task that you're completing that day, you make a little tick in the service plan, and you supposedly actually did everything you checked, and then you go to your next job site, and you have a route that you follow. Well, in the future, that's going to change, and when we get really prescriptive maintenance, where from our artificial intelligence, from machine learning, you're going to get you'll be able to determine, it'll determine when and what service tasks will be performed, and you'll get a daily assignment and routing. And here's a sample of what you'll see on your PDA, and it says your first service is 250 First Street, and you're allotted this many hours. They're going to be grouped geographically close to each other so that you can you don't lose a lot of time traveling from job to job. And then you have like a quarter of an hour travel time, and then you start the next one. And this is what you're told you're going to do today. But you're going to be told the day you start to work. You're not going to get this a week ahead or 2 weeks ahead. It's based upon all the data that's been gathered. These are the urgent jobs we want you to go to today. And then you'll get your tasks assignments for the first project. So it'll be, well, when you get to this first job, you check in. Always got to check in with a customer. And then on car one, we want you to service the door locks. On door one, we want you to adjust the door lock on 4, because we're getting a vibration signature that says the door is out of adjustment. And so, and then we want you to service the next couple of doors. And when you're done, you go to the next couple of cars. And then toward the end of this visit, we've been getting a high machine room temperature fault coming in from one of the sensors. So we say, well, we want you to go to the machine room. We want you to vacuum out the controllers, because they get hot because of all the dust that's collected in them. And then check the machine room temperature and make sure that the air conditioning is working, and make sure that the temperature is set right on the thermostat, and then you check out. So you're gonna get this kind of programming. So the serviceman's knowledge will be required to be different. Right now, the service people, they know what they should be doing, or they think they do, and then they go to the site and perform certain things. Here, we're going to be very prescriptive. Here's where you're going. Here's what you need to do. That's going to have an impact on a lot of things. So the labor required with data-driven maintenance, less labor will be required for proper maintenance. So you're going to spend, it's hard to believe we can spend less labor than we're doing now, but yeah, you can. You really can. And so less labor will be required to do proper maintenance. Most inspections will be performed by sensors. Now, a lot of what we call maintenance really isn't maintenance. It's just go check this, go check that, check the oil level here. All of these things, there's nothing beneficial being done to the lift at that point. You're just checking things. Well, with sensors and with AI, you don't need to do those inspections. So clearly, the vast majority of the check this, check that task that you're doing now will not need to be done, and that'll free up a lot of time. And you'll only be doing what truly needs to be done. But I think we're doing a lot of things now that really have very little value, and we're not doing a lot of things that we should be doing, but we'll discover this through machine learning and AI. So the total labor expended, including call outs, will be less. Maybe we'll spend more time doing service, but we'll be able to avoid breakdowns and being called out in the middle of the night because the lift isn't running. And so the total labor will be less. So you might think, well, we won't need as many service personnel. This is going to be great. Makes the MBAs very happy. And so we're going to have to train our technicians to have with different skills than the ones they have now. So the skills that I think are going to be required in the future would be basic mechanical, electrical skills, including oiling, greasing, and cleaning. The thought that you're going to get away from oiling, greasing, and cleaning is absolutely impossible. You're still going to have to do that. You have to do the basics no matter what. There's a lot of people who think, oh, we don't have to do this now. Oh yeah, you do. You do. And then I think we're going to have computer literacy. You know, in let's say Western Europe, UK, US, everyone's fairly computer literate, but that's not necessarily the case in other parts of the world. And so we're going to have to make sure that people know how to use their smartphone and know how to use a computer. And then I think we need to teach a little bit of conceptually on probability and statistics, because a lot of artificial intelligence is based on statistical analysis, and it won't always come up with the right answer. So you can't go there and say, well, I was told to do this and there was nothing wrong. Well, that's very possible. So we don't want to have people knowing how to actually do the math. We just want them to have an appreciation for probability and statistics. Vibration. Well, we've heard a lot about vibration here from the last two speakers. Understanding vibration is something we're going to have to explain to people. And we need to do things like understand what natural frequencies are or eigenvalues. What is resonance and how does that affect things? And then what is a fast Fourier transform and how does that tell you what's shaking? And it does. That's one of the most powerful tools you have, even with your just using like a Henning or a PMT tool. You can definitely diagnose trouble just on vibration. We need to talk about vibration signatures or pattern recognition, because that's what Stefan was talking about. There's going to be patterns generated by the way things are vibrating. And then sensor technology. There's going to be a lot more sensors. You don't need a whole lot of sensors to get a great deal of information, but I think with time, lifts are going to be made with more and more sensors, so you get more and more information. So we need to make sure they know what an accelerometer is. There's a lot of people using barometric sensors, pressure sensors like an altimeter in effect. Temperature sensors, humidity sensors, strain gauges, current transformers. We talked about, I think someone mentioned measuring door motor current. Well, that's a very powerful bit of information, and you can do it with a current transformer. Photoelectric sensors, Hall effect sensors. So we're going to have a training program for our technicians that they get exposed to this. They don't have to be experts in it. They don't need to understand how to double integrate the output from an accelerometer, but they need to know what it is. And then radio frequency fundamentals. And I was involved in the rollout of 80,000 cellular units in the United States. And I found the people don't understand radio frequency, so that cellular antennas, vertically polarized, well, the one on the car has to be vertically polarized, but I've seen people stick them on the side of the controller and bend them at 90 degrees, so it doesn't work. So we need to make sure they understand where to place antennas, why you need to have the alignment of the antenna done properly. It's not real complicated, but radio frequency is perceived by many people, well-educated people, as being a black art, and it sort of is, because it seems doesn't seem like it follows the laws of physics, but it really does, but it's just a kind of a different set of physics. And then EMC, electromagnetic compatibility, that's always being a problem, but it's going to be a bigger problem. The more sensors we have, the more antennas we have out there picking up interference, the more noise we have, the more attention we're going to have to pay to electromagnetic compatibility. So I recently prepared a video on how to crimp wires, how to put a lug on the end of a wire and crimp it, and how to strip it. In some parts of the world, they don't do it right. They use pliers to crimp a fitting. And so these kinds of things are important. Now, the other factor that's going to have a big impact here is urbanization. And we heard about urbanization before another presentation. So urbanization is a population shift from rural areas to the cities. And of course, when we think about this, we think about, well, China and India, but it's everywhere, not to the same extent. So why is urbanization going on? Well, life in rural areas is really hard. And so, people want to go to the cities and have a better job, they think, and they end up stuffing circuit boards or something like this, not necessarily wonderful work, but at least you get to eat every day. And so there's this, that's why everyone's moving to the cities. Now, when did urbanization start? Where did it all begin? Technically, urbanization was when cities were first formed, and those cities were typically in the Fertile Crescent in Babylonia. But more recently, urbanization, it all started in the UK. And it started here because of the Industrial Revolution. And there were people who didn't have to work on farms, they could work in factories. It wasn't always the greatest job, but this is what did it. Now, urbanization, this is in the UK. If you take a look here, look at the percentage. 20% of the people lived in cities in 1801. 50 years later, it was 50%. By 1901, it's like 75% of the people in the UK are living in cities. What is it today? Whoop, what too fast? It's, how do I go back here? I'm doing the left. Okay, I'm doing the left. Oh, there. Oh, it's not showing up here. Okay, so urbanization is increasing everywhere, even in the UK. So each one of these people is 10 million people. So in the UK, by 2030, there's going to be 3.5 more people. That's 8 years from now, that will move from the rural areas into the cities. Where are they going to live? They're going to have to live in high-rise hotels, high-rise apartments. Some of them will work in factories, but some of them will work in offices as well. In the US, it's going to be 21 million people are going to move from the rural areas. So there's even in countries you think of as being developed, and these kind of numbers apply to Western Europe as well. Everyone's still moving. But where it really gets dramatic is like India, where you're going to have 102 million people are going to move from the country to the city in the next 8 years. And it's even worse in China, 109 million. So this definitely makes the lift industry a growth industry. We don't have to worry about your business growing. It's going to grow no matter what, which is a good thing. Urbanization can also be green. And there's a movement in Ireland where they're saying, no, we want people to live in taller buildings because we can't keep converting farmland into roads and houses. The roads disturb how rainwater and snow is distributed. They create all kinds of problems for transportation systems. So they're trying to increase the height of buildings, get people to live in high-rise buildings rather than living in single-family homes in the country. Again, this is very good for the lift industry. And so the conclusions from this are that AI will change the timing and frequency of service for sure. Improve customer satisfaction and operational efficiency will be achieved. We'll be able to run our businesses better because we're going to do the right thing at the right time and not do anything we don't need to do. And our customers are going to become more satisfied because nobody likes having their lift broken and having to call out. Lift service technicians are going to need additional skills to deal with all these AI. And we need to start working on this right away, I think. And then urbanization will equal more lifts, but the improved productivity you get with AI will not keep up with the demand for more technicians. So one number I always like is in the United States, there are roughly 1 million lifts in operation. And every year in China, they install 500,000. So where do you train these people? How do you train them? And so we have a huge training job going forward. So urbanization definitely means more technicians, more engineers.
Rory, thank you.